Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of 1923 Main Street.
Home of the Disney Travel Podcast with the latest Disney travel news. We are your hosts.
I am Mike Bellabraddock.
And I'm Amelia Bellabraddock. And today, as the summer season approaches, we've compiled a list of the best and worst tips you might hear surrounding Disney's travel this summer.
Yes, the dog days of summer are fast approaching, and it's pretty hot already. So if you have a summer vacation planned to Walt Disney World in July and August in particular, we go every summer for well over 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I've spent summers at Walt Disney World as a Disney vacationer. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. And the internet is full of expert tips on how to visit Walt Disney World in the summer. So we went out and gathered up all the tips that you commonly see. And we're going to put our lens on what's a yes tip, what's a no tip, what's an obvious tip, and what's a maybe tip. So we're cutting through the scads and scads of information to let you know what we think really matters as a Disney traveler.
Today, we've compiled a list of the best ones to make sure that you know the most important things when traveling in the summer, because some of these things are things that you do not want to miss.
And we're not going to name names from the websites where we found these, but I've got 15 or 20 tips here that you see commonly, plus a few of our own that we don't see so commonly. And I want to make a point that I mentioned earlier. A lot of local Disney people who live in and around Orlando provide tips and information, and that lens is very different than the audience for our show, which is for the Disney traveler. So if you are vacationing to Walt Disney World and staying in a hotel for a week, etc., and everything goes with that, your experience is very different than the experience of someone who lives and just visits the parks.
Like, that's a big thing. Like, even some things, if you're flying to get there, some things that they might recommend you bring, you physically cannot have on an airplane.
They're not practical. So we're going to get into some of those. And by the way, we're not casting aspersions because we have a lot of close friends and cast members who we love and who live in and around Orlando. And they often say to us that very thing. Our experience as a vacationer is very different.
Yeah.
So while I love local sites for the sort of day-to-day what's happening in the parks, as a Disney traveler, they do not have that perspective necessarily, and so that is what we provide on this program, and that is exactly what we're going to provide today as we assess which Disney travel tips for the summer are hogwash and which are ones that, hey, maybe you should take into account. So let's jump right in. Remember, we are going no, yes, obviously, and maybe as our rating system.
So first off, one of the most commonly seen tips are buy the park cooling towels.
Oh,
they're pretty much everywhere.
Cooling towels.
You have fallen into the Disney marketing's trap because that's what they want. These things are everywhere and they're honestly not that unique.
Yeah, so let me give you my perspective on cooling towels. So first of all, cooling towels per se is a bit of a marketing, scheme. Because I once read a scientific study on this that said really any towel will work. Okay, so if you want to do this process, then you can really use anything, a microfiber cloth, whatever you want. It does not have to be branded as a cooling towel. But do you really need a cooling towel to visit Walt Disney World in the summer? First of all, yes, it's hot and all that stuff. Unless you have some real reason, that's a no for me. I think this is just one of those silly tips personally. Hey, if you like these things, of course, do them. But if you're asking us as Disney travelers who go there every summer in the heat, do we need a cooling towel? No, never.
And I mean, I think sometimes it might be different. Like if you have a little kid or a baby and they're like at risk of actually overheating, then that's different. We're talking more specifically for like teenagers and up, really.
Yeah, there's always extreme circumstances, medical, other things where obviously tips will apply to you. But if you're just an average traveler going on an average trip, we don't need you loading up on a lot of things that aren't necessary.
Yeah, and I know I didn't see these before I saw them at Disney, but they sell cooling towels at other places.
Of course they do.
You don't have to buy the Disney ones because they're twice the price. You can, but there's other options.
The next one is one of my favorites, seen a lot. I have a strong opinion on this. As you can tell, I'm going to be opinionated on this episode.
Yeah,
more so than usual.
Yeah, well, this is kind of the same thing. Disney sells them. You can buy them for super cheap elsewhere, and you don't really need them. Welcome back to another episode of Ponchos.
Yes, this tip you always see, buy ponchos before you go. My response, N-O. No, don't buy ponchos. You don't need a poncho. Here's my take on these things. And yes, we've tried them years and years ago. And you'll see people put them on when it starts raining. But let me ask you
I used
this.
them for years.
Yeah.
And
Did you like them? Why did you stop?
Well, I was just like, oh, okay, well, I'll try it without. It's so much better.
Here's the thing, do you want to be wrapped in saran wrap in a wet microwave oven? That's what it's like when you put a poncho on in Walt Disney World in the heat of summer.
They keep you sort of dry.
But you sweat like the dickens underneath them. So you just become uncomfortable, sweaty, and, just run to shelter. And then you take it off and you got this wet poncho, just run to shelter. And you know what? You dry off. We've been soaked to the skin.
Yeah.
We're going to get to some other tips around that. You dry off pretty quickly, so don't necessarily run out and buy a poncho.
Especially if you're keeping
another thing to carry.
Yeah, especially if you're keeping the poncho on the whole time. Please do not do it because you get super hot and super sweaty, and then you just keep the water in. And they're honestly, in my experience, not that effective. They rip really easily.
Yeah.
And now you have to carry a backup poncho. Just don't do it.
My tip around this would be prepared for the rain. And that just means sort of knowing the time of day when you're going, which we've talked about a lot, obviously late afternoon, so that you can plan accordingly and, just run into a store or something or any sort of shelter when it rains.
And
you don't need a poncho.
Yeah, there are definitely tips to help you dry off faster so that you don't need a poncho in the first place.
All right, next tip that we see all the time, stay hydrated.
What?
Yeah, well, listen, this is what I would categorize as, obviously, this is not specific to Walt Disney World travel in the summer. This is specific to being in any hot location in the sun at any time of year. So you want to stay hydrated. Yes, it's a good tip, but I wouldn't categorize this as a Walt Disney World specific tip. Probably where you live, it's very hot in the summer. I mean, there's few places where it's not in North America. So, stay hydrated. Yes. Is this a great tip? No. The next one, same thing.
Find the air conditioning.
Yeah, I think your natural human abilities are going to take you to the air conditioning when you need it. And there's no shortage of air conditioning all around Walt Disney World, hotels, resorts, parks, anywhere you are.
Yeah, and if you're at an absolute loss, the Disney buses, they're very, very good at air conditioning. So...
Yeah, so these are, we're looking for real Disney World vacation tips that you don't think of on your own. So when I say these are obvious, Well,
there's a difference between summer tips and Disney World vacation tips, which is what we're trying to bring you.
Next one, arrive early at the parks and stay late. And I said yes and no. And I only say that because you don't necessarily have to do both. So yes, arrive early. Yes, later is better when the sun goes down, but no, you don't have to arrive early and stay late. That's sort of counterintuitive, as one website has it worded this way. That's not what you want to do by any means. You want to get out in the midday stuff.
Yeah, I would say the only time that you would do this is if it's your one trip and you're only there for a couple of days and you need to fit everything in. But if you have more time, please just take breaks. You will burn out very quickly.
Which is the very next point. Take an afternoon break. And we say yes. That is a very, very good tip in the summer at Walt Disney World Resort. Avoid parks during midday heat is even a better way that this tip is worded. Also is a better yes. So that is when it's hottest, most crowdest, and when your little ones or yourself are going to hit that wall.
Although if you don't mind the rain, I would recommend going after midday once everyone starts to leave because it's raining. That's when, if you don't mind the rain, that's when you just sneak in there. Lines are a lot shorter, although outdoor rides might be closed.
Next one, pack sunscreen and apply it often. This falls into the Obviously category. Having said that, I don't use sunscreen personally, but if you use sunscreen or if you burn easily, obviously apply sunscreen. But again, not necessarily Walt Disney World specific tip, just a good practice in high UV sunny summer days anywhere.
I think, especially just try to find shade when you can, but obviously you're going to need sunscreen if you're standing in hot lines in the sun all day to avoid burning.
Next tip, do indoor attractions during the heat of the day. I say no. I don't necessarily agree with this tip as a rule. I mean, one thing I do like about Florida in the hot summer, there's clouds, right? Because it rains. So it can be hot and cloudy. And I tell you, I love going on Slinky Dog Dash or any of the outdoor coasters during that time because it just feels so refreshing in the wind. So I get the theory behind this one, but I'm not going to spend my whole day indoors.
I don't know that I would say do them in the midday heat because then if then once the heat breaks, now all the outdoor rides are closed because it's raining.
Because it's raining. That's a very good
So
point.
you don't want to waste your midday heat, which is the time that you can go on the outdoor rides.
And
I'm
taking these as they're worded on these so-called expert sites. All right, next one. Bring a waterproof bag. Maybe. I don't know. If you have some stuff, I don't know. I mean, for me, it would be a no, but I'm going to say...
You don't bring a bag.
Yeah, I don't bring a bag. So I say maybe. You might have kids or something. There's extenuating circumstances around all these things. So maybe.
Maybe don't bring your nice leather purse if you're staying out in the rain or you're going on a water ride.
Same as the next one. The next one, have a long lunch indoors. Maybe to no. So again, I get the theory, but first of all, I don't want to waste a lot of time at lunch. There's other things you can be doing in the parks, even when it's hot. And I'll tell you, it's not always cool in these restaurants that are crowded, even the AC ones. We were in Cosmic Rays last summer in August. It was pretty hot in there. We were trying to find an outdoor table, actually, if you recall.
Well, because the thing is, everyone's doing this, so everyone's inside. And now you're just in a room with 100 people
100 stuffy,
that are
hot
sweating
air
and
people.
very possibly in ponchos. So not the move. Something that I would say to consider is book a late lunch, like in the afternoon when it's raining, at like a table service restaurant where there is AC.
Much better tip. This is one of those tips that strike me as someone made it who hasn't actually done it, who isn't actually a traveler. We do it.
Great in theory, not in practice.
Exactly. Pack a portable fan. No, do not pack a portable fan unless you love lugging stuff around. And we're going to get to that in a minute. These are all the common tips you see that I, quite frankly, think are ridiculous because I don't like to carry stuff around. It is completely counterintuitive. We'll get to that in a minute. Water parks?
Yes, please. In the heat of the summer, a great option.
Yeah, best time of year to go to Disney water parks in the summer. Go in the morning first thing, just as you would the parks, and you'll have a great day, even if you do half day. Next one I really, really like. I think it's a great tip.
Be flexible with your plans.
Yeah, you know what? Summer, there's a lot of variables with heat and rain and all those sorts of things. So go into it knowing that is a good tip all on its own, and be flexible that weather may very well impact you in some way, much more than it likely will in the spring, summer, or fall.
Yeah, and if I ever try this, I'll let you know how it goes. So next up...
This one is funny. I don't even really get it, but I put it on here.
Allow time for entertainment and characters.
This falls into the obviously category. I don't see what this has to do with summer at all. It was in a popular website, Summer Tip Guide, right? Obviously, you're going to allow time for the things you want to do. It's got nothing to do with summer.
And all of these websites have the same thing. I just don't understand how this is relevant in the summer more so than in March or another time.
Next one we love, and I almost didn't see it. I only found it on one website. It's one of our favorite tips.
This one I never see. This one, wear quick dry shorts and shirts if possible.
Now, this goes exactly with the poncho thing. So I don't wear ponchos. I don't mind getting wet. Put your phone in one of those plastic cases if you must, but mine stays in my pocket, still stays dry. Most phones are waterproof to that degree now.
Or water resistant. So
water resistant, yeah. And we dry off, honestly, in less than half an hour. I mean, you dry quickly. So you're in a theme park. I would much rather just sort of get refreshingly wet and dry off than put on a microwave oven plastic poncho and cook like a sous vide steak. I do not want that happening to me. So quick dry shirts and shorts, great tip.
Even not necessarily you have to buy separate ones. Just consider fabric. Like if your fabric's going to hold on to, if you have a shirt that's going to hold on to water and stick to you all day, maybe skip it.
Super practical tip, and so is the next one that I only saw once that we also find from personal experience to be a great tip.
If you at all have space, bring 2 pairs of shoes.
Because
it rains and they are going to get wet. I don't care if you're wearing a poncho or if you have an umbrella or whatever.
That's
the water stays on the ground.
Yeah, your feet are going to get soaked. Your running shoes or whatever you're wearing are going to get soaked. So don't wear leather. If possible, wear shoes. Either bring 2 pairs, or if you're wearing Crocs or something, as much as I hate them, they will dry off fast. Or bring 2 pairs. Or if you're in a villa, we use the dryer quite often to dry our shoes in the summer.
Now, something I've seen is to bring an extra pair of shoes with you in the parks. That's a little bit unnecessary. I would say extra socks maybe, but shoes aren't necessarily quite important. I think that one you can skip. I think just overall, a tip is just don't bring your super fancy designer clothes in the parks because it's raining, there's mess, things are going to get wrecked. So just consider that in the back of your mind.
And all of this goes into one of our top tips of all. avoid lugging things around. So all of these things you're seeing, bring fans, bring shoes, bring towels, bring everything, is completely the opposite of what you want to do. If you can get away with not lugging a backpack around in August in Walt Disney World,
It's just going to make you sweat more.
it's going to make you sweat more, crankier. It's so opposite of what you should do. Don't bring any stuff. That's our point in the heat.
Yeah, I think as soon as your baby graduates out of its stroller, it's time to graduate away from the
The
stuff.
stroller years are your lucky years because you have a built-in carrying case. But other than stroller people, and also, a good tip you don't see often, those misting stations are fantastic. Use them. You don't get soaked in them. They really cool you off. So those are great things. And then finally, one funny tip I saw, plan all your pictures in the morning.
Yes.
Well, first of all, not all pictures are planned.
Yeah.
And it rains in the afternoon, so not bad, but I don't think that's such a great tip because that's also the best time you want to be on rides. So
If you're doing a photo shoot, like if you're booking photos with something,
yes,
then book it in the morning. Your hair's nice, your makeup's nice. It might be a little bit less crowded. But I wouldn't say you go around in the morning trying to get all of your photo ops done. But it depends what you mean. If you want to go for the Instagram photos, sure, maybe you do it when your hair's nice.
All right, there you have it. Our take as experienced summer Walt Disney World travelers every year. We've experienced this. These are what we think. As a Disney traveler, share with us your best practical Walt Disney World specific summer travel tips on social media this week at 1923 Main Street. All right, everyone, thanks for listening. We'll see you again next week and have a magical day.
Bye.